He used to live in fear of being exposed, that it was all fake, that one day people would realize he didn't deserve his position and his career would collapse before his eyes. A screenwriter once commented that he was too chubby, not handsome enough to be a hero or a romantic character. And so he was typecast in supporting roles, characters behind the scenes, not the center of the story. He didn't have a striking appearance, unlike the rising stars of that era with their ideal height, sharp features, or perfect physiques. He was just an ordinary man in a Hollywood that always prioritized looks. But for him, appearance was never important. The only thing he cared about was the feeling of successfully completing a role. Because for him, that was the pinnacle, the greatest reward an actor could achieve. Whether it's a small role in an independent film or an appearance in a Hollywood blockbuster, he still captivates the audience. He doesn't need to be the main character, because his acting brings every role to life. That's Philip Seymour Hoffman, an actor unlike any other. He has the ability to transform ordinary characters into memorable ones, making them so real that viewers can't forget them. Few know that in his youth, he was an unremarkable boy who loved sports, especially wrestling and baseball. But everything changed after he saw a play, Arthur Miller's All My Sons. That moment completely captivated him, drawing him into the world of theater. From then on, his passion shifted. He began joining drama clubs, going to theater with his mother, and then studying acting at NYU. The stage gave him a feeling similar to sports, where everyone coordinates seamlessly like a perfect machine. But this path wasn't easy. After a neck injury at age 14, he was forced to give up sports and focus entirely on acting. And then he realized a harsh truth. In this industry, talent alone isn't enough. You also need looks. Thousands of people compete for the same role. All are chasing a dream. And for someone without a cinematic face like him, the opportunities are even scarcer. He auditioned constantly. There were roles he knew he wouldn't get. There were scripts he didn't even like. But he still went. Because for him, each time he stepped into the casting room was an opportunity to act, to practice. He once said, "If you have the chance to perform in a room that someone else has paid to rent, it's a gift, and you have to give it your all. Because if you do well, no one can forget you." To get through those days, he worked various customer service jobs. He worked while pursuing his passion. Until his first opportunity appeared. Scent of a Woman became a turning point. The film was a huge success, and among its cast was a young face, Philip Seymour Hoffman. From then on, he began to gain attention. He left his temporary jobs and devoted himself entirely to acting. And then, big directors began to take notice of him. One of them was Paul Thomas Anderson, who, from the first time he saw him on screen, knew he needed to work with this man. It wasn't just the beginning of a career, but the beginning of a legend. That moment finally arrived. And the Oscar goes to Philip Seymour Hoffman for Capote. But to describe him, one golden statuette isn't enough. One could spend hours analyzing his incredible ability to transform, from angry stares and deep-seated hurt to existential despair, then shifting to authority and irresistible charisma. He was a true chameleon on screen. If Hoffman appeared in a film, you knew one thing for sure: it wouldn't be a pleasant journey. His characters were always complex, contradictory, and unpredictable, completely different from the traditional Hollywood archetype. And that became an advantage, because typical leading roles often have to conform to a certain archetype: charming, intelligent, strong, to appeal to the audience. But if you play by those rules long enough, you'll never change the game. Meanwhile, Hoffman often appeared in supporting roles, but that allowed him more freedom. Each role was a completely different person, different attitudes, different ways of speaking, different rhythms. He wasn't typecast, not labeled. He once said, "Those characters weren't him. The important thing was to find the similarities and differences between himself and them, and from that, create a completely new person. That's almost a miracle in Hollywood. And make no mistake, Hoffman could absolutely become the center of power. In The Master, director Paul Thomas Anderson transformed him into Lancaster Dodd, a captivating cult leader who was both manipulative and terrifying. Every word he spoke carried weight. Every glance instilled a sense of unease. There were moments when he confronted Freddie Quell, Joaquin Phoenix's character, in tense dialogues. And then came a particularly dramatic scene, a room full of people. Everyone listened intently to his every word. Hoffman began calmly, confidently, completely in control. He persuaded, guided, and convinced others. But then, someone voiced their doubts. Initially, he maintained his composure. He accepted the skepticism, even using it to strengthen his arguments. But the more he responded, the cracks began to appear. The room gradually changed, from trust to suspicion. His gaze began to waver. His voice remained strong, but something was no longer certain. He tried to maintain control, but the truth was, he was losing it. And then, when cornered, the mask crumbles. Confidence turns to panic. Authority turns to rage. A man who once controlled everything is now defeated by his own suspicion. That's Philip Seymour Hoffman. He doesn't just play one character. He makes you feel each layer of emotion breaking apart right before your eyes. When cornered, his character has no choice but to completely discard his opponent. A reaction that is both decisive and reveals an inner breakdown. Then you see a completely different side through Gust Avrakotas in Charlie Wilson's War. A straightforward, blunt, no-nonsense man. The kind who walks into a room and immediately takes over. It's a real class in physical acting. Before uttering a single line, Hoffman has already begun acting. His slightly hunched posture, his slow pace, his presence, all set the tone. He makes the audience feel the character, even before they hear his voice. And then there's the rhythm, something he masters absolutely. His pauses are never random. He knows exactly when to be silent, when to explode. A moment's delay is enough for tension to build. A perfectly timed line breaks the ice. If it's a humorous line, he'll let the silence linger a little longer, before delivering the final blow that makes the audience laugh. If it's anger, he'll pause, take a breath, and then continue, as if trying to control himself. What's amazing is how natural everything looks. You get the feeling he's both fully aware of the rhythm of the performance and completely letting himself go by instinct. And though he's rarely the main character, he almost always steals the spotlight. Not with showmanship, but with an undeniable authenticity. Even in lighter films like Punch-Drunk Love or The Big Lebowski, he still carries an intense energy. His humor isn't about trying to make the audience laugh, but about fully immersing himself in the character. But when he moves into heavier stories, he reaches another level. In Doubt, his performance is on par with Meryl Streep, one of the greatest actresses of all time. The film revolves around suspicion, unverified accusations, and shaken faith. Hoffman's character, Father Flynn, is at the heart of that ambiguity. Is he guilty, or merely a victim of false accusations? The film doesn't offer a clear answer, and that's what makes the performance so special. In ordinary moments, Flynn appears warm and empathetic. He speaks softly and openly, making others feel heard. He doesn't seem like someone in a position of power, but rather an equal. But when questioned, everything changes. His voice becomes cold. His body tenses. His gaze is no longer gentle but defensive. Layers of emotion, fear, anger, hurt, begin to surface little by little. Hoffman and Meryl Streep create a tense, breathtaking confrontation. No major explosions are needed. Just glances, pauses, fleeting expressions are enough to draw the audience in. You don't know who to believe. And perhaps that's exactly what the film wants. Was he angry at being wrongly accused? Or was it the panic of someone trying to hide the truth? Hoffman didn't answer. He only left you doubt. There were things he couldn't say, even when others couldn't imagine what the explanation would be. And it was in those moments that you saw the most complex, the most authentic Philip Seymour Hoffman. But if I had to choose my favorite role, it wouldn't be the most famous, nor necessarily the best by general opinion, but the most sincere. In Love Liza, Hoffman embodied Wilson, a man who had just lost his wife and had no idea how to live on. All he had left was a letter she left behind, but he refused to open it. He fears the answer. He fears facing the truth. Hoffman portrays Wilson with an almost childlike naivete, mixed with a profound despair. A man trying to fill the void of loss, but not knowing where to begin. Awkward conversations, strange actions, self-destructive choices. It's the image of a man unable to accept reality. But what makes this role special is the hidden tenderness. Lost and in pain, he tries to connect with the world around him, though those efforts are often misguided or ill-timed. You feel both sadness and pity. It's not a polished performance, no exaggeration. Just a man, slowly sinking into pain, trying to escape, only to fail again and again, until he is forced to face the truth. More than a decade has passed since his passing, but those roles remain just as valuable. Not only do they endure, they continue to touch the emotions of viewers across generations. Philip Seymour Hoffman was more than just a great actor. He was an inspiration to many other actors, a mentor, a role model of dedication to his art. He didn't have the typical Hollywood star look, but his talent is irreplaceable. He made strange, lonely, not-so-cool characters worth caring about. He forced audiences to look at people we might normally overlook. He didn't care if he fit the mold. He didn't care if he was a leading man. He just wanted to act, and he did it in a way no one else could. Despite his untimely death, Philip Seymour Hoffman's legacy lives on, in every role, every moment, and in the hearts of film lovers.